Meow. 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 Meow.
Hi, Carrie.
Hello.
Mary. Hi, Mary. I'm glad you've got your mask on for our meeting.
I am here. Guess the computer can't get anything.
That's right. We don't want any viruses infecting.
Can't hear you though.
You can't hear me? I'm not muted.
You're talking and I can't hear you. Can you hear
Oh.
me?
I can hear you.
Her volume might
Yeah.
be muted.
You guys can't hear me?
I can hear you, but I'm wondering if Mary's volume is like muted.
Yeah, Mary, maybe you've got to turn up your volume.
She may not, she can't hear us.
Oh dear.
Um,
That makes things hard.
could you write a note on something and show it to her? You just have to write it backwards.
Can you hear me?
I cannot. Yes, we can hear
No?
you.
You can hear me, but I can't hear you.
Turn up the volume. Volume. Yeah. What are we gonna do?
She might have to leave and rejoin. Someone else on the planning board was having the same issue.
Let me try calling her.
You can join with a phone for sound.
Yeah. Trying to reach her. Hello? Hello?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi. We don't have a quorum yet,
Sure.
Matt. Mary, can you hear us yet? She keeps going to answer her phone, but ay, ay, ay. So Beth is going to be quite a bit late because she had car trouble. We were on a site visit after you left, Robin. Her car got damaged going over a curb, and so she had to get AAA. So I don't know when she's going to join us. So if we don't have Mary able to participate, we won't have a meeting apparently. Mary,
I'm okay.
oh, hallelujah.
My granddaughter put the phone on the floor. It's like,
Oh.
where is it? I hear it.
Oh, great. Okay. Did you hear what I just said about,
Yeah, I was gonna say, where did not, hopefully not on this street.
no, just another, just she was driving over like a curb and into a turnaround and her bottomed out her car. And
Oh, dear.
anyway. Okay. So it's 6:03 and we'll call the Shutesbury Conservation Commission to order. Today we have Miriam Defonte, Mary David, and Robin Harrington present, and we may be getting Beth Wilson later, too many Beths. And the first thing on the agenda was to talk to the town and Matt Stickowitz, their project manager for the Locks Pond culvert replacement. Hi, Matt. And Becky, I see you're here too. Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you. So we have the request for an amended order of conditions, and tonight the plan was to just not to review everything, but to just have a preliminary discussion so that we can make a determination that we can go forward to the public hearing phase. And the plan right now is to have a public hearing on August 30th, which is a Wednesday at 6 p.m. That we're still good for that?
Correct. Becky confirmed today that she was able to get the abutter notifications out. I believe the legal ad was posted, so we are all set for next Wednesday's hearing. I don't believe there's going to be any new information to add prior to next Wednesday. I believe we submitted everything that we were anticipating from the contractor, but if we do receive any other submissions or last minute revisions, we'll be sure to forward them as soon as we get them.
And have you notified have you submitted your request also to Natural Heritage?
Yes, yep, I copied her on our request to the Concom. Sorry, I'm blanking on her name at the moment, but the representative that we had talked to, and she confirmed receipt of the request, and I copied her on the submittals that we sent the Conservation Commission as well. But she hadn't sent receipt of those yet, so I'll follow up, make sure that she's seen those in her inbox.
Would you let her know that the public hearing is next week?
Okay, yep,
that there's time pressure. I understand that, there's, and some real time urgency because you wanted to begin working in September, first week in September. So
absolutely, yep.
for us
Yep.
to issue the amended order of conditions, we need to get something back from them.
Correct. Yep. So I'll also let her know that we're looking for an expedited response.
Okay, great. So could you just, and without going through the whole thing, just give us just a snapshot, maybe take no more than 5 minutes, and let us just explain what you're wanting to have amended in the permit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I won't bother sharing any documents. You have them all there. We can review them in more detail. But the quick summary is that, as everyone knows, the project was delayed. If we started construction immediately, we wouldn't be able to finish in the time of year restrictions that are currently allowed by the order of conditions. So the town is requesting an extension to the order of conditions, an extension to the time of year restrictions within the order of conditions, an amendment to the order of conditions that would change the time of year restrictions to allow construction to be complete in the wetland resource areas this year. So the project isn't delayed until next year when the time of year restrictions roll around again. So that was our first request. The second request was considering that the permit expires on November 12th, I believe, or 13th. Don't have it in front of me, but it's early to mid-November. Considering that we're planning on having work done around that time frame, we're asking for an additional just extension to the permit to allow us to ensure that it all gets done this year, but then also just to give us the opportunity to monitor and maintain the new natural stream bed and the riprap revetments and all that that's put into the stream this year, in case there's any erosion or sedimentation observed. It would give the town the opportunity to fix that, and also any vegetation in the area. If the vegetated slope, it's going to be pretty late in the year to once all this is done to really have vegetation settle. So over the winter, we'd probably like to keep erosion controls in place and remove them once things have kind of been in place. So extending it, I think in my request I had said 3 years, but at least a year to complete construction. But as long as you're willing to keep the permit open to allow monitoring and maintenance for the first couple of years, at least to let everything settle in. And the third point, which I don't believe requires a revision to the order of conditions, but as a condition of the original order of conditions, there's been a change to the water control plan, which, as we know, as you're all aware of, the water control plan that was in place doesn't have the capacity for the current flow that we're seeing this year. So in order to keep the project moving, we're increasing the pipe. It's the same general plan. It's using a gravity-fed bypass system. So basically a second pipe installed adjacent to the existing culvert at the same rough elevation as the existing culvert, and the water will just be diverted through that stream. It's the same system that was proposed in the original water control plan. However, we're just increasing the pipe size for that bypass. So instead of two 18-inch pipes, it's going to be a 48-inch diameter, inside diameter pipe to allow the increased flow without substantially increasing the velocity.
All right. We'll talk more about it. The questions about the controlled water plan when we have the public hearing, I think we'll post that. So we do it all at once. So
Can I just ask a question?
yeah.
So there's not really a change except the size of the pipe from what I was looking at? Or do I need to look
Correct. Yeah,
deeper?
the overall approach that we're using isn't changing. Again, it's the same bypass system. It's the same gravity fed. They're going to have, with the increased bypass, it even reduces the risk for needing to pump. So originally the system would support up to 20 cubic feet per second, and they would have a bypass pump on site for any additional flow. We're increasing it now to 40 cubic feet per second, which is well above what we've seen in the recent months. So it's unlikely that we'll need that additional pump, but they will have one as part of the plan. They'll have one on site in case it's needed, but very unlikely that they'll need to use the pump to control water with the new pipe. But everything else stays the same. The way that they're damming the stream and diverting it to the pipe using sandbags is the same. The dewatering system, the dewatering bag that they're using to pump out the kind of leftover residual water as they excavate the existing culvert is the same. The outflow, the apron at the far end of the bypass is staying the same.
Well, Matt, I think that's not correct. I think that the narrative in the controlled water plan shows that it's much larger because of the increased flow. That was one of the questions I had, concerns I had in the email I sent to you.
Again, yeah, I think I responded to that. I reviewed it and I didn't see the narrative and the
So-
calculations both suggested an 8x12. I'll look at it again to review,
Well,
but the last time
Yeah, the narrative and the calculations say 8x12, but the actual diagram and the site plan hasn't changed. From it has something like 4x7 or 5x7 or something like that.
Oh,
So
okay.
was my concern is that the site plan itself, not the narrative, isn't
Yep.
updated. And then the other concern I had was that previously we had asked to have the site plan revised so that the outflow is not perched. And you had added in 2021, you had added a notation for the contractor, but that notation wasn't on the site plan this time around.
Okay, yeah, I conveyed that. The two questions you already gave us, I conveyed those to the contractor and asked if they're capable of making those changes. So if what you said is correct and it's just not shown correctly in the plan, which forgive me, that was my oversight then. Yeah, I certainly don't think they'll have a problem updating it to what their calculations are showing. And I don't anticipate they would have an issue with the perched culvert condition. But again, that's a question for the contractor and the contractor's engineer that developed the plan. So
yeah, because the design doesn't show how they're going to avoid perching it. If they have to have the pipe, sitting atop, some supports, there needs to be something at the outfall to reduce the perch.
Right. Yeah. And I believe that's part of what the apron's for. So when they install the apron, they'll install the apron, equal to, the same elevation as the outlet of the pipe rather than, rather than below. So that bottom sandbag would.
So I would like,
that would be.
yeah, I would like to, before we approve it at the next meeting, I'd like to have the updated site plan sent to us.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That's why I asked for your feedback this early so that we had a chance to make those changes. So like I said, I let the contractor know, and they I haven't heard from them yet, but they should have an updated plan before the next hearing.
Great. Okay. So commissioners, do you have any other questions before we make a decision? We have to make a vote about whether this is a major or minor change in order to proceed. I'll explain that in a second, but let me just see if there's any more questions from the commission.
No, I think it explained pretty well the documents we got.
Okay. All right. So the process for amending an order of conditions is that the commission has to make a determination that the changes being requested are not so major that they would require a new notice of intent. We still have to have a public hearing if it's a minor change. The only time when we wouldn't have a public hearing is if there's just a very, very minor kind of clerical correction. But we do have to have the public hearing next week, but we need to vote saying that we've made a determination this is a minor change and does not require a new notice of intent. So if we all feel that's satisfied, then somebody just needs to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve that this is a minor change. I don't think this is anything major.
A second?
I second.
Okay, David,
Aye.
Font, I, Harrington.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we're good.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your quick, expedited review of everything, and we'll talk again next Wednesday.
That's
Well,
great.
thanks for getting the stuff in so we could look at it.
Of course.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night, everyone.
All right. So I'm trying to look, we're gonna probably take some things a little bit out of order because I'm still hoping that Beth will be able to join us, though. I don't know if that's not looking great. We have draft minutes from June 22nd to consider. I don't think I put on the agenda July 13th, but I don't think we have those yet, do we?
No, we do not.
No.
Okay. So, has everybody had a chance to review the minutes for June 22nd?
Yes.
Any discussion?
Look good to me. So motion to approve the minutes.
Okay,
My second. They look good to me too.
Okay, David,
Aye.
Font, I, Harrington.
Aye.
Okay, I know that we had, and I don't see Penny here, so we are not going to discuss the mowing piece until she comes. I guess we can just,
I'm here.
you are,
Penny's not here, but I'm here.
okay. So let's go through the mowing request. So we have a request from the town asking for permission to do some mowing on lot 032 in some areas that are under the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Bylaw, but Wetlands Protection Act and our local bylaw. And the request was to do a mowing in the fall in November of BVW1 and the inner 25 feet of the buffer zone around the BVWs. And then there was a request to mow the rest of it, the outer area of the buffer zone, earlier than that. Is that my understanding?
Right, that would be mowed on a somewhat regular basis. So the upland and then the buffer zone to maintain the field.
And why, I guess the concern I have a couple concerns. Ordinarily, we wouldn't approve mowing a BVW without a notice of intent because it's considered to be an alteration under the Wetlands Protection Act and our bylaw. So I'm a little confused. Why does the BVW need to be mowed when you're going to be getting a notice of intent to us at some later point this year?
Well, the BVW isn't being mowed. The buffer zone is being mowed. And then the BVW on the meadow, yes, that would be mowed to maintain the meadow, to prevent woody growth from growing and to prevent the spread of invasive species. That's why we would mow it before the notice of intent. And then that would be part of the ongoing management of the meadow in the notice of intent. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I guess, I don't understand why not just wait and include this in the notice of intent, because ordinarily we wouldn't approve mowing without a notice of intent. It's an alteration of a resource area.
Well, it's been mowed for decades, and the only time it hasn't been mowed now. And since it's not being mowed, woody growth is happening and invasive species are spreading. And so the mowing could help prevent that. And we won't be putting a notice of intent in before the fall. So this would just allow us to maintain the field this fall, separate from that. But we could leave that out.
And I guess the other question I had was about the 25 feet. Why 25 feet of a no disturb zone? Where?
Well, so the library construction is gonna go, the the area around the library construction is gonna go that far, so it would be good to keep woody growth from happening. Any place that doesn't get mowed, woody growth is gonna start happening. So that's why, just to keep it clear and to make a clear area, so that so it doesn't look like the messy field that it looks like now.
Okay. I guess my thought, I'd like to hear Robin and Mary, your thoughts about it. I guess my thought would be to ask the town not to mow the BVW. I mean, I'm not really concerned about one season of woody growth. I think that, you know, mowing it now and mowing in the summer whenever construction would begin is not going to make a substantive difference in the amount of woody growth unless the project is delayed for years. I don't think that's going to make a huge difference. So my preference would be that we allow some limited, first of all, the mowing that happens outside the buffer zone, you don't need to ask us permission for. That's not our jurisdiction. You can mow or take trees down even outside of the buffer zone. And within the buffer zone, I guess my thought would be that we've talked about wanting to maintain the inner 50 feet of buffer zone as much as possible, a no disturb zone. So unless there's an absolute necessity to mow, I guess my preference would be to wait and not have that area mowed until there's a notice of intent.
I
But you
see
would still,
Steve has
but you
his
would
hand
still
up.
mow at the end. You would still mow once the weather got cold. That part you're okay with?
My thought would be that there wouldn't be any mowing in the BVW, that we not approve that until at all, because there's no notice of intent. No. It's just, you know, there's no, usually that kind of an alteration would be approved under notice of intent. And if somebody else had a wet meadow and were coming to us, we would require a notice of intent for that. So I feel like for the sake of consistency, we should be requiring a notice of intent. The town is going to submit a notice of intent. So it seems like one season isn't going to make a huge difference. And there needs to be kind of a long-term management plan for how that meadow is going to be maintained. I think it would be better for us to review that in a public hearing and looking at the whole site in its entirety and how it's going to be managed, and then incorporating that into order of conditions.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have enough information to understand it all today.
Well, let me, so what I was going to propose first, and the other piece of it is I don't think we need a memorandum of understanding. I think that the town's asking for permission for something, and we can, you know, tell them what we're authorizing in a letter. So I've sort of drafted a letter, but I, you know, I want to kind of review what I'm suggesting. So what I was going to suggest, let me look at what I've written, would be that the town, that we give the town permission to mow or remove other kinds of vegetation, including shrubs and trees, in the outer 50 feet of the aura right now, and that we wouldn't put any time of year restriction on that or any limit to how many times they can do that. That would, because again, we've been conceptualizing having a different standard for the inner 50 feet and the outer 50 feet. That's kind of how we've been talking about the way that we were going to regulate the aura as a resource area. And that we would allow them to mow the inner 50 feet once in November. Or later. And then hold on, and then I would add giving them permission to do spot removals of invasive plants in either BVW or the aura. So I would say if there's areas, and that was one of the questions that Penny had proposed, was that if there was if there were some invasives taking hold in the BVW, it could get staked out and could be weed whacked. We'd come out and take a look at it and confirm that we think it's a reasonable area to weed whack, and then that area could be selectively cut to contain the invasives. And I think that would be acceptable within the BVW because it's an environmental enhancement.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mary?
So does that make sense to you, Robin? You know a little bit more about the invasives and
Oh,
everything.
no, it does make sense. It does
Okay.
make sense. We had
Yeah,
talked
I'm
about
okay
this
with that. I
today.
think. What? So Mary Ann, what do you think about that? Does that sound?
I think that sounds like more work, but we're gonna do whatever you allow us to do.
Well,
And
you
we may not get to doing anything with the invasives. So you know, and which will just mean that they, you know, continue to spread and it's more work to remove them later. So
And why wouldn't you do the invasives now if we say, yes, that's okay to do?
because it means that there's another process that somebody would have to manage. And so, you know, so I'm not going to promise that somebody's going to do that work.
that was in the request from Penny.
So I was gonna say, I think I'm confused because that was in the request. That's why I'm asking.
Yes, Penny was
Well,
at,
in the buffer zone, not in the buffer zone, in the BVW, yes.
Yes.
But you know, and so if we get to it, we get to it. And I was reading the request from Penny before, but you know, but we so it's you know, it's going to be more work to do it that way. So we'll get to what we can get to.
I just want to say that I know that there are probably several people who would volunteer for invasive removal. I've been helping Penny do it at the top of the lake project, and I'd be happy to help here.
yeah, I would be too.
Just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was a little confused. I thought it talked about both areas, the buffer zone and the BVW.
Right,
removing them
Yes.
So that they
I
would.
would like to, you know, I'd like to mow more to keep it controlled. It's, you know, just doing it with a weed whacker or pulling it by hand is more work. But that's fine. We'll do it this way and we'll get to what we get to.
Well, okay. So, let me screen. I see, Steve Sullivan from the Highway Department. You have your hand raised, Steve?
I do. I have a question and a statement. The question is, because I, like Mary Ann, agree that we really should do some mowing because it doesn't look very good. But who's gonna go out there and not just at lot 032, but throughout town and like stake out the areas that can be mowed and can't be mowed as we shift into this new process? Because there's no way I could go out there now and mow. I wouldn't have any idea, even in November, I still wouldn't have any idea where I can and can't mow without literally someone holding my hand the first time to show me where I can and can't go, because a few flags, when you're out there with the brush hog, they're just gonna get mowed over and I'll run them over, I won't see them. And my second thing is just so that you know, because the Conservation Commission had, I think at one point said we couldn't mow until the ground was frozen. But as a horticulturalist, I will tell you that that's a bad time to mow. We really want to mow before everything freezes, because if we're running the crowns of plants over, we can destroy those plants by destroying the crown if it's frozen. And then we can't mow if there's 6 inches of snow on the ground anyway. Thank you.
Yeah, well, those are good questions, Steve. This request that we received from the town was that the town was going to stake out an area for mowing. And the town was proposing to stake out a 25-foot buffer area. And so what we're saying is that we would prefer a 50-foot zone for mowing for now, since there's no permit before us, and we're making a decision outside of the permitting process. And in the future, when there is a permit under review, then we can look at everything in its entirety and come up with a long-term maintenance plan that the town can propose. And then it'll be very clear in the future what needs to happen and where. So all of those things I would think would get clarified during the notice of intent process. So really what we're talking about now is the difference between the 25 feet and the 50 feet. And the proposal from the town was that they were going to stake it out and then we would come out and review that and approve it. I'm still thinking that that makes sense for this particular property in this instance. The bigger question, I would say, around other town properties is that if they're wetlands, we should probably come out and take a look and make sure that there's some clarity about where the wetland boundaries are. I'm not sure where the town is doing mowing. I know that around the fire station, there's wetlands. I'm not sure about the town hall property. And I'm not sure what the mowing has been around the dam and in any other areas, but we could set up a site visit with the highway department and go out and look at some of these sites. I would be very open to doing that. What do you guys think, other commissioners?
Yeah, I'd be open to that.
How would that work for you, Steve?
Works for me.
I think the bigger question is around right-of-ways. Because, that's many miles of mowing that the town does in the right-of-ways. And I think we could maybe be more efficient and maybe having just a meeting with you and looking at some maps and maybe outlining some areas where we would prefer to have less mowing. Or no mowing if there's a wetland right near the right of way, or perhaps we could have a conversation about what time of year the mowing happens. We understand that the town has to maintain the right of way for safety and for the power lines, so we're not trying to undermine that process, but it would be great to have a conversation and work collaboratively.
Oh no, we don't do the power lines, we do the broadband.
Okay. Aren't they the same though? Aren't they on the same poles?
Yeah, they're on the same poles, but the broadband is much lower.
Okay. Okay, I see. So you got to make sure the vegetation is lower for that reason. Well, I'd like to propose that maybe, Steve, we set up a meeting, like a site visit, and or designate a time at one of our regular meetings where you come in and we could look at some maps and have a conversation and do some planning.
That sounds good.
That'd be
I'll
great.
let him know.
Thank you. Becky, I see you have your hand raised. You're muted.
So this is getting very similar to what we were talking about, trying to put together a blanket order of conditions with the highway department. But and we all agreed to wait until after a new highway superintendent was hired. And I'm not sure, this is outside of any formal process. This is just conversations but at what point does it turn from conversation to a more formal process? I'm just a little confused what we're doing here.
Well, we would love to work with the town around developing a maintenance notice of intent. I understand that you're in the hiring process for a new superintendent, and if you would prefer to hold off on this conversation, I don't think anything was going to happen anytime soon anyway. So hopefully the new superintendent would be on board for when we would have this meeting.
That would be very helpful.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate. Okay, let's move on. So let me screen share. Hold on, let me screen share this letter. Oh dear. This is not good. I'm having trouble. You get out of hang on one sec. All right. All right. Okay, so here's a letter. Can everybody see it, commissioners?
Yes.
Okay, Shutesbury Conservation Commission received a request. We appreciate the town keeping us informed of its mowing plans. This letter is confirm our requirements. You can just say our conservation's requirements. Mowing and vegetation removal outside of identified resource areas and the upland, adjacent to upland resource area or the buffer zone is not regulated by us, and no application is required. Vegetation removal within auras and BVWs are subject to approval by the commission under the act and the bylaw. The aura is a protected resource area under the bylaw. The commission has established a policy which it hopes to incorporate into future regulations of treating the inner 50 feet of the aura as a no disturb zone where development activities should be kept to a minimum unless there's a compelling need and no other practicable alternative. So we start with viewing it as a no disturb zone and we work from there. So if an applicant had a compelling need and they absolutely had to develop that area, then that would be reviewed under an application. Mowing and vegetation within a bordering vegetated wetland is considered an alteration of a resource area under the act and the local bylaw. Alterations of this kind require a notice of intent. The commission understands that a long-term vegetation management plan will be included in the notice of intent for the new library, including a vegetation management plan. For this reason, the commission asked the town refrain from mowing BVW1 until this vegetation plan is approved under an order of conditions. How's that sounding so far, commissioners?
Good.
In the meantime, the commission outlines below the conditions under which vegetation may be removed in the aura of BVW 1 and 2 for the remainder of the 2023 calendar year. The town may mow or remove other kinds of vegetation, including trees and shrubs, outside of the 50-foot aura boundary, provided the commission reviews and approves a staked limit of mowing in advance, and there's no time of year restriction on this mowing or any limit on the number of times the mowing can occur. So they can, as long as we review that boundary, they can do whatever mowing they need to do.
Okay.
And then 2, the town may mow the inner 50 feet of the aura only once in 2023 and only in November or later. The commission asks the town notify the commission that the town notify the commission by email at least 48 hours prior to the date of mowing. Mowing should occur at a time when there has been no precipitation for a minimum of 1 week or until the ground is frozen, whichever is earlier. I mean, there's a reality that, while we've been talking in the past about mowing when the ground was frozen, and that was one of the conditions that we approved last year for the Ames Pond trail maintenance NOI, it's possible in the future that the ground won't be frozen in December. So I don't think we want to make that the criterion. I think saying November, or if or the ground is frozen. So if it rains all throughout November, then I would say wait till the ground is frozen. So do I have this right? Should it be whichever is earlier or whichever is later? Earlier. So you can mow in November if it's dry, or if it isn't dry in all of November, then wait till it's ground is frozen. Should somebody help me here? I'm not sure if I've written this properly.
I think it's okay. I understand.
Should I be saying is whichever is earlier or whichever comes later?
Why don't you just skip that thing?
Because I think that we need to have a criterion, because if for example, it rains every day or every week in November, then it's not reasonable to ask them to wait for a dry week. So at that point, we would just ask until the ground is frozen. So
Yeah.
okay. Mowing may be accomplished only at a height of 5 to 7 inches, no raking or removal of cut vegetation allowed. If the town identifies any significant patches of invasive plants within BVW1 or the aura, such plants may be cut or removed any time of year once they've been flagged and approved by the commission. Any future mowing in areas subject to jurisdiction by the commission will need to be reviewed under either an RDA or notice of intent. Any suggestions around that? Mary and
I
Beth?
mean, I think that's clear,
Okay.
No.
All right. Somebody want to make a motion?
Well, would you like the motion to approve the letter?
Yep.
The motion to approve the letter we just reviewed.
The mowing letter. Okay.
I second.
David,
Aye.
I, and Harrington.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. I'll send you a copy of this when the meeting's over. So next on the agenda, we had I just put it down as a kind of a bookmark that we received the initial report for lot 032 for the BVW restoration, and I thought we should review that. I'd like to table that discussion to our next meeting and just ask everybody to make sure that you've read through it. And that, if we have any questions that we would, we could, send those to the town.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And then there was a item from Penny about the top of the lake conservation area for a public opening and planning for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd like to see her come and talk a little bit about it.
Yeah.
No, I looked at the letter, but I want to make sure I understand what she's saying.
Okay. So we'll table that discussion for the 14th.
Okay.
Okay. So we have, I was going to give an update on the bylaw regulations review and just have some planning about the next steps. So the town approved our use of a special counsel to do a legal review of our bylaw regulations. And so we were granted approval for 5 hours of time.
Hmm.
And we got a signed engagement letter from the select board, which I have passed on to the Beth Goodman, who is the special counsel for this. I had a brief conversation with her yesterday just to kind of get her oriented. And she's going to be starting her review and hopes to get it done in the next 2 weeks. So the next plan would be, next step of it would be that, assuming she's available, that we would get the review from her and have her come to our next meeting to report back to us and answer any questions that the commission has. And if she has any recommended edits, we can discuss with her what those recommended edits are. And then assuming that we end up with a draft that she feels is as adequate and the commission feels is adequate for going to another public hearing, we've talked about scheduling another public hearing. We've had a lot of emails from members of the public asking when that was going to happen. So I thought perhaps we should at least set a tentative date for a public hearing, with the understanding that, you know, if we're not ready and we have to do another round of revisions, that we might have to delay that public hearing so that we have a, you know, kind of a more up-to-date draft. So what my thought was either September 20th or September 27th on a Wednesday. A Wednesday because Janice Stone would want to have I think Janice Stone attend since she's worked on these regulations. And what we can also talk about is whether we would also like to have Patrick Garner there or not.
Do you think that's enough time for us to get it back and review it and do what we need to do?
I think so, yeah. Yep. I mean, we would discuss, you know, we would discuss it at our meeting on the 14th with Beth Goodman. And, you know, I think we're going to have her feedback sooner than the 14th. And so if there's revisions and edits, I'm assuming she's going to give us those revisions and edits. So it may be pretty easy to incorporate them.
Okay.
So I don't know when the Jewish holidays are. Does anybody know when is?
Yom Kippur starts on the 24th and
Okay.
Rosh Hashanah starts on the 15th.
Okay. Okay, so there's no conflict.
So that would be Rosh Hashanah week.
It would be.
I don't think it will interfere with.
Okay. All right, well, why don't we tentatively think of September 20th? And, you know, if there's something that causes us to need to delay that, then we can delay it, but at least then I can try to get Beth, see what Beth's availability. The other thing is, I'm assuming for that public hearing, we would want to have Beth available. And that leads to kind of a question of like, how would we be paying for her time for that? Because the 5 hours that is allocated is for her to do the review and come to one meeting with us for a preliminary discussion, not for a public hearing. If she's able to do the review quickly and she feels like she can do the public hearing also within that 5 hours, then it isn't an issue. But if it's going to be extra, then there would be the question of, you know, how would we be paying for it?
I think we need to see what she recommends. You know, we've made a lot of changes already. Maybe there's not a whole lot that would still be in question.
But we would want her to be at the public hearing in case there were any questions at the public hearing. I think that we would want her there. So we could use our bylaw fee fund, we have funds available, and we could pay for a couple of hours of her time to attend the public hearing. We would need to have permission from the select board to do that because they only approved 5 hours currently. So that's why I'm bringing this up, because we would need to put a request to the select board to allow us to use our funds to have her attend a public hearing.
I mean, I think that's a discussion for the whole commission.
Yeah,
So then that delays things, Mary, because then, we're not gonna be able to talk about it until the 14th, and we could talk about it briefly at our next meeting next week, if you want. Should we do that?
Yeah, I think we could do that.
Okay, because it just means saying we want to, it would be, making a request to the plant, to the select board. We wouldn't be asking the town to pay for the time. We would be just asking for the permission to use her for that public hearing.
Yep.
All right, so we got a, yeah, I see a hand raised. Mary Lou?
Hi, good evening. Mary Lou Conca. This just a general question about the attendance in this evening's Zoom. There's somebody is coming in as owner, OWNER, and I'm just curious, and I'm sure you must be as well, who that person is. Thank you.
Would whoever is owner be willing to identify themselves for, yes, owner?
Yes, this is Janice. I'm owner. It's a new computer. It's the first time I got on Zoom. And before I could change it, it just said, "What's your name?" And there was owner, and I clicked on it and it went through to the meeting. So this is Janice, and I'll be on as Janice next time until I figure out how to do that.
Okay.
Thank you, Janice.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here, Janet. So were you hearing what we were talking about, possibly a public hearing on the 20th
Yes.
or the
Yeah.
20th? Are either of those dates okay for you?
Where is it again?
It's Wednesdays.
Yes, the 20th, I will probably be out in the Berkshires during the day doing field work, but if it's at 7, I should be able to get home in time for that.
Okay. And how about the other one, the 27th?
That I don't have anything for that one, so.
Okay. All right. We'll see where that goes and let you know. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So update on requested actions regarding town violation notice. We got a report from Becky. Thank you, Becky, for that. I have not really had a chance to review it. So I'm suggesting we just table that discussion for our next meeting. Does that work for everybody?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay. So I've submitted, Mary Lou, you've got your hand raised still. So
Sorry. Yep, I'll take it down.
I just wanted to let the commission know that I have submitted an RDA for my own property, which I sent to everybody and to DEP today. This is an RDA to resurface my driveway with a trap rock surface and to construct a rain garden within the buffer zone of a BVW on my property. So we need to set up a site visit for that, and we need to have somebody volunteer to chair the public meeting on the 14th, since I am recused. So I'm asking the commission to select somebody to take over my role during that public meeting section for my project.
That would be just to review your thing.
Yeah, just for my project. Last time I had an RDA last year, Beth did it.
That's what I was gonna say. I would recommend Beth to do it.
Are we gonna voluntold her?
Yes.
Okay, well, you guys make that decision then.
Yeah, I recommend that Beth do it.
Okay. So we'll have Beth coordinate when to do a site visit, so I can show you what we're doing before that. All right, site visit follow-up. So we had 88 Shore Drive. Robin and Beth and I took a look at it today and everything looked fine. This is a building
Yeah.
permit and there's no resource areas. And 135 Montague Road was a septic system construction, and we looked at the wetland boundaries and it's outside of the 100-foot buffer.
Yep.
So we'll just send an email to the Richters saying that they don't need any permit from us, and I'll approve the Shore Drive building permit. So we've, in terms of scheduling, we've got my property. We have 2 NOIs that are pending. The 64 Lake Drive and the 5759 Shore Drive. We have not received the updated documents from those applicants. Both of them had a bunch of changes they needed to make. And they have not let us know when they want to schedule their public hearing. 5759 will need to do a new notice and legal ad because we were unable to open their public hearing when they scheduled it because they didn't come to the meeting that night in August. I think it was the last meeting. Those are pending, but once we know when they're going to have the public hearings, we'll need to do the site visits for those. So I guess we'll need to hold off. 70 Cooleyville Road. I've been waiting to get a revised site plan from the landowner with a wetland delineation so that we can do the site visit for that. So I think we need to hold off on that until we get that information. And then 140 Leonard Road, I haven't even had a chance to look at it, but this is where a landowner wants to remove a number of trees and they want to resurface their driveway. And the property is in the buffer zone, the aura of a BBW, and it's not, it was not clear whether or not the tree removals were in the resource area or not. So he got the property professionally delineated and he sent us the delineation. So I think we need to probably go back out and look at it. Have you got either of you had a chance to look at that? Okay. So let's do another, we did a site visit last year, but I guess take another look at it. And this is kind of similar to my situation, but my thought would be that for the driveway, they would need to submit at least an RDA.
Yeah.
If it's in the buffer zone, that we've required RDAs for other driveway resurfacing. For other properties.
Sounds like it's going to.
What?
I said, it sounds like it's going to require an RDA.
Yes.
Yeah.
Should I go ahead and tell them that?
I mean, I think it would save time to go ahead and tell them they're gonna need something and so they can submit that
Yeah.
rather than wait for other meetings or.
The only question is if it's tree removals within the BVW, then they would need to submit a notice of intent for that. So, that's where I can let them know that, and then we can do the site visit.
Okay.
Okay. And I think that covers all that. This is unanticipated business, but there was a report today. We received a report of I'm sorry, do you have your hand raised?
Yeah, so, I didn't hear you say anything about the RDA application that I sent you?
Um,
Are you gonna get to that later?
well, we're not going to discuss it tonight, but we have to schedule the public hearing for it.
Right,
For it.
yes,
So I
okay.
think what I said, it would be on the 14th. Would be the
Right.
public meeting. We just have to decide what time we're meeting that night, so I can give you.
Okay, and you're gonna do that during this meeting?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I just didn't want it to slip your mind and not get done. Okay, thanks.
I know. We received a report of a potential wetland violation from an abutter of a landowner who sent us photographs and videos and has concerns about filling wetlands on a property in Shutesbury. Beth and I drove by the property today, and you can't see anything from the road, so that wasn't helpful. The landowner who contacted us has offered to take us onto his property, and he says that you can view some of the work that's been done from his property. So I think that the plan would be for us to go out tomorrow and take a look at that.
Do you know what time?
I have not set a time. I think he was free. I'd prefer to do it in the afternoon. Let me look at my schedule for a second.
But we can decide tomorrow if you want.
Well, let's just do it now. I would like to do it at 2:30. If we could do it at 2:30.
Yeah, I can't do it, so 2:30 is fine with me.
Okay. And I'm gonna touch bases with Mark Stinson about this as well. I did email the complaint was also sent to DEP, and the feedback I got from Mark Stinson was that that there are some concerns about this because the property is also an outstanding resource waters located on that property, as well as some large BVWs. So I guess we'll learn more when we go farther. Yes, Janice.
Since there's a relation with a Pelham entity, if it's appropriate, I'd like to go. If you feel it's not in any way, I understand too. Just as the Pelham Concom agent.
Yeah, can you do it tomorrow?
I can make it, yeah.
Okay.
But
What's
you
the
know, I
actual
don't.
address?
Well, I don't know the actual address of where the work was done because there's a couple of properties. One of the properties is I believe it's 576 West Pelham Road. It looks like there's two properties owned by the same landowner. And just so everybody understands, we're not going to be going onto that property. We're just going to be viewing it either from the road or from an abutter's property. And then if we have concerns at that point, we would contact the landowner and ask for a site visit and take a look at that point. And the reason why Pelham is of interest here is that the documentation that was sent to us by an abutter shows Pelham Highway Department trucks bringing fill in reportedly or allegedly near a resource area or in a resource. And the landowner, the abutter reported that the work happened last summer as well as this summer, and that he's observed at least a dozen dump trucks full of fill coming from the Pelham Highway Department, and that he believes one or more vernal pools have been filled in, as well as other wetlands.
All right. Well, I'll just confirm with you tomorrow exactly where you want me to meet you.
And the jurisdiction here, of course, is our jurisdiction because the activity happened in Shutesbury, it didn't happen in Pelham. But as long as the abutter doesn't have any objection to your observing, Janice, I don't have any problem with that.
Yeah, so you can check with him and see what he thinks.
And apparently the abutter had contacted Becky Torres last summer. he forwarded an email and had reported the violation to her and had asked if there were any environmental regulations and said he never heard back from Becky. Becky, do you know about this? He forwarded us an email that he had sent to you from, this is Mark Conrad. You're muted. Can't hear you.
I had an unopened email from him from the prior year. I hadn't seen that email way back in 2022. I had a phone call, and at that point, when I had a female call, I told her to call the Concom.
Okay. So it wasn't him. Somebody else.
I never spoke. Yeah, I spoke to a woman about a year ago, and then again recently, and I told her again to call the Concom.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think we did get a call. Did Carrie?
We may have gotten a call recently because I saw in the emails, like, it must have been either from today or after I had left yesterday. Recently, whenever we get a voicemail, I now get an email of the voicemail. I was quickly going through my emails before opening the meeting and I hadn't opened it yet, so that could be the email.
Okay.
Or sorry, the voicemail.
Okay. All right. So, and I remember somebody telling me, and I thought, was it you, Janice? Somebody mentioned last year that they saw dump trucks near a wetland.
No.
Okay.
No.
There was somebody who asked me about activity on West Pelham Road, but
Huh.
I can't see any of this from the road, so I'm not really sure.
Okay.
So, okay.
Yep.
All right. So I don't have anything else right now. Anything else? Any public comments?
Motion to adjourn there?
Okay, so our next meeting, just to remind everybody, and we need to confirm the RDA public meeting time. So I would like to ask at least for the next couple meetings for Thursdays, if we could do the meetings at 7 p.m. I have an afternoon commitment on Thursdays that interferes with doing 6 p.m. Is that okay?
Fine with me.
Okay, so I've already scheduled our public meeting for 7 o'clock, so we could do the lot 032 at 7:15. Is that all right?
Yes.
Is that okay for you, Marianne?
This is the 14th you're talking about?
The 14th?
7:15? I
Yep.
mean, it doesn't really matter. That whatever time works for you. Okay.
That'd be great.
Okay, thank you. So the 14th at 7:15.
Yes, so
Okay.
Carrie can go ahead and arrange the legal notice, and she's got to do the same thing for my RDA, and I'll have to make arrangements with Carrie about that.
Okay.
So Carrie will do the legal notice?
So it's a new process. We were advised by Donna McNichol that we should not be making the applicants submit the legal notice, that we should make the arrangements and then have the applicant pay the newspaper once we've given the language to the newspaper.
Okay.
So-
And so when you're doing this on behalf of the town, the town has an account with the Greenfield Recorder, and they bill us because we don't, that's how we pay them. Most people would probably pay with a credit card, but the town doesn't pay that way. So
Carrie-
you need to mention that to them up front so that
Carrie-
they know.
Carrie, you've got your hand raised. Did you?
Yeah, so for that process, what I'll do is I'll draft the language, I'll send it to both you and Miriam. If it's agreed upon, I will then CC you on the email, me sending it to the Gazette. They'll send the invoice, and then from there, if I could either talk to Becky about submitting the payment on behalf, like writing out the payment request using the account, or you'll have the invoice if you'd like to
And can you send it to the Greenfield Recorder? The Greenfield Recorder charges less.
Okay.
Becky wants to say something there.
Okay.
I was just saying that Carrie did that for the culvert project ad, and it just she's forwarded to me a copy of the bill so I can process it, and Marianne can do the same.
Okay.
It's very
All right.
straightforward and simple.
Okay. All right, that's great. So that's one less piece that I have to do.
And let me ask you a question for the butter notifications for the culvert project. Did it say Greenfield Recorder or did it say Daily?
So I did the Hampshire Gazette for that one because I wasn't aware that I should be using a different one. But now that I know, I will be using that one.
Okay. Great, just as long as the butter notifications.
Yeah, that matched. But now that I
Okay.
know that this is agreed upon thing, I will continue that way.
That sounds fine. All right, and we'll get you the language for my my legal notice as well, and I'll coordinate around that maybe tomorrow.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
All right, so we got a plan, it's all straight. We're all good. Okay. All right, I think we're done. Short meeting. Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn? And we'll see you next Wednesday, 6 p.m.
Wednesday
I
at
made the
6.
motion. Second.
All right, second
Second.
is David.
Aye.
Aye, Harrington.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.